This is a true money horror story. It's the story of how I, Alex, a 32-year-old graphic designer in Austin, Texas, went from having a six-figure salary and over $40,000 in savings to facing eviction in less than 3 months. For years, I thought I was on the perfect path. I had the degree, the cool tech job, and I was diligently putting money away. I was doing everything our parents told us to do to build a stable, successful life. The first sign of the nightmare was an email on a Tuesday morning. The subject line was corporate restructuring. My heart sank. By 10 a.m., my entire creative team, including me, had been laid off, effective immediately. I tried to stay calm. I had savings, right? $40,000 felt like a fortress of cash. I told myself this was just a bump in the road, a chance to find an even better job. I was wrong. This wasn't a bump. It was a cliff. The first month was a blur of updating my portfolio and applying for jobs. But the market was brutal. We're pausing hiring, overqualified, hundreds of applicants. The rejections piled up, and my confidence started to crack. Then, the first bill hit. My luxury apartment in Austin, the one that signaled I'd made it, suddenly felt like a concrete box trying to suffocate me. That $2,500 rent payment was the first major crack in my savings fortress. Then my car, a trusty sedan I'd had since college, decided this was the perfect moment for a catastrophic transmission failure. The mechanic looked at me with pity. "It'll be about $4,000. Another cannonball through my financial walls. I started to panic. I looked at my bank account and did the math. The numbers stared back, cold and unforgiving. That $40,000 fortress, it was melting away faster than I could have ever imagined. I immediately went into what I called poverty mode. No more dining out, no subscriptions, no coffees, no social life. I was living on rice and beans, literally. The avocado toast everyone blames us for, I hadn't bought one in years. But skipping a $10 lunch doesn't matter when your student loan payment auto-drafts for $450. It doesn't matter when your rent consumes a huge portion of your old income and your emergency fund is bleeding out. By day 60, the anxiety was a constant hum in the back of my skull. I wasn't sleeping. I'd just lie awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through the dwindling numbers in my bank account. More than half of millennials and Gen Z are living paycheck to paycheck, and I was about to find out why. I was no longer just a statistic I read about. I was becoming one. Day 75. I had less than $5,000 left. My next month's rent was due in a week. I remember sitting on my floor, surrounded by bills, and for the first time, I cried. Not just a few tears, but a gut-wrenching sob of pure failure. This was the core of the horror story, the guilt. I felt an immense, crushing weight of personal failure. I had a degree. I had a great work history. I had savings, and I was still about to lose everything. I thought about my parents. They bought their first house in their late 20s on one middle-class salary. They had built a life, and I couldn't even survive 90 days without a job. The shame was suffocating. I blamed myself for everything. The apartment was too expensive. I should have saved more, even though I saved consistently. I should have seen the layoff coming. The voice in my head was relentless. You failed. This is your fault. This is a feeling nearly half of all Gen Z and millennials know all too well. This constant state of financial insecurity and stress, feeling like you're failing even when you're trying your best. It's a silent epidemic of anxiety. I hit my absolute rock bottom. I was a week away from calling my parents and admitting I was broke, that I needed to move back into my childhood bedroom at 32. The humiliation felt like a physical weight. And then something in me snapped. It was a flicker of anger that cut through the despair. How could this happen? How could doing everything right lead me here? I stopped blaming myself and started doing the math. Not just my math, but the math of the whole system. I pulled up a chart on inflation versus wage growth. Since 2021, the cost of everything had surged while wages barely kept pace, meaning my hard-earned money was worth less every single year. My purchasing power had been secretly shrinking. Next, I looked at housing. I found a statistic that hit me like a punch to the gut. In 1985, the median house price was about 3.5 times the median income. By the time I was looking, that ratio had jumped to over 5, and in cities like Austin, it was far, far worse. The income needed to afford a typical home in the US had soared to over $100,000. I had been earning that, but with student loans and the high cost of living, it wasn't nearly enough to both live and save meaningfully. The numbers just didn't work. Finally, I looked at my student debt. My average millennial peers are carrying over $40,000. That key to a better future was actually a financial anchor, a mortgage I took out on my life before it had even started, delaying everything. It wasn't just me, it was a systemic squeeze. My wages bought less, the barrier to entry for wealth, a home, was impossibly high, and I was starting the race tens of thousands of dollars behind the starting line. It wasn't a fair race, it was a rigged game. That realization changed everything. I wasn't a personal failure, I was a casualty of a broken economic system. The guilt vanished, replaced with a cold, hard determination. I couldn't fix the system overnight, but I could learn the rules of this new game and find a way to win. My recovery started the next day. It wasn't about saving $5 on a latte, it was about a radical strategic shift. This is the 40% of the video with actionable tips, so listen closely. This is how I fought back. Strategy 1. The financial autopsy. I didn't just budget. I performed an autopsy on my spending. I categorized every single dollar from the last 6 months. The big 3 killers were obvious: housing, transportation, and food. Forget cutting streaming services. I needed to slash the giants. That meant making a painful choice. I broke my lease. The penalty was 1 month's rent, but it saved me from bleeding out another $15,000 over the next 6 months. I found a room for rent with 2 roommates for less than half the cost. It was a hit to my pride, but a massive win for my bank account. Strategy 2, the income stack. Relying on a single paycheck from one employer is a 20th century strategy. It's financial suicide in today's economy. I stopped just applying for full-time jobs and started building an income stack. This is crucial. I immediately signed up for multiple high-end freelance platforms. I messaged every contact in my network. Within 2 weeks, I'd landed 2 small graphic design gigs. It wasn't my old salary, but it was cash flow. It was a lifeline. This diversified income stream is your shield against corporate layoffs. In today's world, you are not a loyal employee. You are a business of one. You must have multiple clients, not just one employer who can fire you on a whim. Strategy 3, the debt tsunami. My student loans were on a standard repayment plan, slowly draining my account. I consolidated them and switched to an income-driven repayment plan called SAVE, which temporarily slashed my monthly payments based on my new, lower income. This wasn't a permanent solution to the debt, but it was critical triage. It stopped the bleeding. It freed up hundreds of dollars a month that I could redirect toward my emergency fund and high-interest credit card debt for my car repair. The psychological win here is massive. You take control away from the lenders. You dictate the terms as much as the law allows. It shifts the power dynamic from victim to strategist. Strategy 4, the wealth-building pivot. The dream of a single-family home in Austin was dead, and I had to mourn it and move on. Clinging to an impossible dream is how you stay broke. So I pivoted my entire wealth-building strategy. I stopped looking at Zillow in expensive cities. I started researching house hacking in lower cost of living areas. Buying a duplex, living in one unit, having a tenant pay your mortgage. It's not as glamorous, but it's a realistic path to owning an asset. I also opened a high-yield savings account and automated transfers from my freelance payments. Even if it was just $50 a week, it started rebuilding my foundation.
The goal wasn't a mansion. The goal was to never be in that position of terror again.
It's been 18 months since that layoff. I never did go back to a single full-time job. I now run my own freelance design business. My income is more variable, but it's more secure because it comes from a dozen clients, not one boss. My income has surpassed my old salary. My emergency fund is now at a full 6 months of living expenses, and I've paid off that credit card. I'm on track to have a down payment for a duplex in a more affordable city within 2 years. I'm not just surviving, I'm winning the new game. My story isn't about getting rich quick. It's about becoming financially unbreakable in a broken system. You have to see the system for what it is, a game with new rules. Your anxiety is real and justified, but it can be channeled into action. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt that financial fear, click the like button. It helps this video reach others who need to hear they are not alone. And subscribe so you don't miss the next true money horror story. Most importantly, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell me what is the single biggest financial hurdle you are facing right now. Let's stop blaming ourselves and start sharing the real strategies that work in today's economy.